When I think about classic shonen anime, I cannot overlook Shadow Skill. This is a series that is a must-watch for any fan of action anime. For me, this had a long-lasting impression, so many memorable moments within the series, and this was the first anime series that I have ever seen to completion. I just rewatched the series for like the third or the fourth time, and as much as I want to fanboy on about this, it's such a great experience, but of course it's not perfect. The characters in Shadow Skill are great. I really love them. If you're looking for something with a strong female protagonist, then you'll love this, because here we have Ellie Rangu, which is one of the strongest female characters that you can find in anime. There was this part in the OVA and also the manga where she was fighting against her younger stepbrother, Gao Ban, and she kicks him so hard that she destroys the entire village or the entire town behind him. She is that strong. But it's not just her. Everyone in this series, or for the most part, all of the major fighters within this series, are just over the top. They are so strong, and it really just leaves this lasting impression of absolute strength. Ellie is from the land of Karuta, where the strongest fighters are known as Civals. Civals are these legendary fighters that are just known for being as strong as 1,000 men, and it is said that as long as a Cival can stand, then he will still fight. And there's actually one part where they put that to the test, where they take 1,000 men and pit them against one man. And these aren't just like random men they put them against. These are 1,000 soldiers with spears and swords and bows and arrows and armor. And you see this one man just take on 1,000 soldiers. Ellie teaches her young stepbrother, Gao, the art of the Karuta annihilation technique, Shadow Skill, which is a set of powerful kicks which draw energy from the earth. But learning these techniques is not a cakewalk, because here we see that Gao is pushed to the brink of death numerous times just within training. Throughout the series, we will watch Gao become stronger, defeating deadly opponents and even entire armies. But defeating them is not enough, because Gao at this point still has to understand the importance of fear and the courage to overcome it. When you watch the character of Gao, and you see his struggles, and you see him just questioning, why do I fight? Do I fight to live, or do I live to fight? And you will see parts where he is just put up against enemies that are so powerful that it almost nearly breaks him, but then you will continuously see him to stand up again and again, even times where you'll see his arteries cut, and blood just spewing out. He will just stand, and blood will just squirt out all over the place. The first half of the series, we watch Ellie and Gao travel as mercenaries, doing odd jobs for money so that she can pay off her bar tab, because the only thing she loves as much as fighting is drinking, and she drinks a lot. This is a trend that I see with a lot of older anime series. You've got the first half of the series, which is somewhat episodic, where we've got a few episodes and small little mini arcs, and then the second half of it is this big war. But even though the beginning part is somewhat episodic and they do a lot of different things, it's not really meaningless, because you do get a lot of setup for the second half of the series. You meet a lot of characters which are very important to the overall story. In Shadow Skill, we learn that their world is divided up into 5 different countries. There's the center holy country, and then there are 4 other countries around it, surrounding it, which are protecting it from outside forces, which we don't really know much about, but it is prohibited for any of the head fighters of any of these 4 countries to fight each other, just because of the way that their abilities work. These characters are so powerful just because they draw the energy from the earth, and if they were to fight each other, they would deplete that energy and cause earthquakes and things like that, which we see in the series. So with the first half of the series, we get a few small mini arcs. With the second half, we get this war where we see a force that is basically just trying to destroy everything. Of course, it's more complicated than that. A major flaw with the story for me is that it's pretty convoluted. There are a lot of things here which you want to know, which you're not really told about, and it really just feels like it's this deep, complicated world rich with story, and you're only being shown elements of it. Even though I've watched the anime series, I've seen all the OVAs, I've watched the movie, I've read the manga, and there are still a lot of things which aren't really told, and I kind of feel that they aren't really pointing the story in the right direction a lot of the times. Even though the overall story of this series I don't really care for, it's still a very enjoyable experience, especially for the characters, and especially for these fights. These fights are insane. You'll watch people just continuously stand even though all the bones in their legs are broken. You will see people get these energy blasts shot directly through them, and just so many crazy attacks here. So even though I really love the fights, there is one part about them that I don't really care for, is that there is a bit too much dialogue within the fights. Here we have, whenever somebody uses any sort of magic ability, they will have to explain it, or whenever they use the talisman will actually talk and tell you what its purpose is and what it does, and I kind of felt that that was a bit much. Plus, whenever you have someone of the Karuta Annihilation technique, they will always just hype themselves up, because they always go through this mantra whenever they get ready to use one of their special abilities. I am invincible, my blow has no equal. And they will just tell themselves how great they are and how strong they are, basically, which is either hypnotism, self-hypnotism, or they're just really pumping themselves up. And it really does the trick for them, and it really makes them a lot stronger for that attack. But, you know, it's really great. When I first started watching this, that was something that really got me pumped up for the fight. But having seen this throughout the entire series, they do that a lot, and it kind of gets old. But it's mostly just the explanations, which I don't really care for, or the hyping up, just because there are some dialogue spots in between the fights which I felt were awesome. There was this one part which kind of takes a jab at, like, most of the shonen series, because there's this guy which is just beating the mess out of Gal, and he's basically telling him that just because you have friends, just because you have love in your heart and faith in your allies, it does not equal strength. I will show you the true importance of fear. Which kind of reminded me of a lot of other shonen series where a character is getting beat and then he just remembers his friends and he just starts getting pumped up. But here it really just shows you that you need a lot more than that. You need actual skill and actual strength, and on top of that, what's most important is the courage to stand in the face of fear. So overall, the Shadow Skill anime, 1998, Studio Dean, 26 episodes. Bit of pros and cons here. The story I did enjoy, but I wish that it was paced a bit better. The overall characters were really great. I love the fights. I love watching the characters interact. I love the progression of Gao. So as far as the audio goes, it was pretty good. The opening here, maybe I'm just a fanboy, but I listened to this in my car. The voice acting here, this is a bit old. Of course, like I said, 1998. Greg Ayres plays as Gao, and he does a pretty good job of it. I watched all of this in dub. I've watched it in sub before. Both of them are pretty good, but neither of them are as great as you can expect from either sub or dub, Japanese or English audio. So the basic Shadow Skill timeline, we originally had the manga, which was then made into OVAs, and then the OVAs were compressed into a movie, and then the anime series is basically just going over all of that which we saw within the OVAs, and then adding a lot more. So if you watch Shadow Skill and you want to see more after you finish, then I recommend either watching the movie or the first two OVAs. The movie and the first two OVAs are basically the same thing. They just kind of like slapped them together and called it a movie, so you only really need to watch one or the other. There is a third OVA, but I honestly didn't like it. It was CGI animation, and I felt that that was very out of place, and the overall story I didn't really care for. But if you're looking for something Shadow Skill that isn't animated, you can always check out the manga. The manga's pretty short, and it's pretty enjoyable, but it does deal with the same issues that I felt that the anime had, such as I wish it was paced a little bit better, and I would like to see a few of the different things, but the art style in the manga is great. It's so detailed. It's detailed to the point that sometimes I'll have to really look at it and see what's going on, just because there's so much rubble flying everywhere from the people fighting. This is one of the parts where I say that Ellie kicks a Gao so hard that she destroys the entire city behind him. One issue that I had with the OVAs is that it pretty much recaps a lot of the things that we see in the series, except for the animation is a bit grittier with a lot more blood and monsters with like body parts and things cut off. But with the manga, this shows different parts of the series that you don't find within the animation, so I think if you're really into Shadow Skill, then you'll probably really enjoy the manga as well. Overall, with Shadow Skill as a whole, it's something that I really enjoy and I would recommend for everyone, but it does have its flaws. Its pacing isn't the best, the story is somewhat convoluted, and also there's a lot of the dialogue within combat. What I think would be great for Shadow Skill is that I think that we should get like a small series of OVAs that completely just revamps the story, taking the characters, and pretty much if they do the same thing, that's fine, but I want to see more. I want to see more history of the world. I want to see more history of the characters, not just the history of Ellie and Gal, because we do get to see that within the anime series. I want to see some of the history of the other characters. I want to see more character development with the other characters, and I think this is pretty much a gold mine with the fighting here. When watching this series for me, when watching it again for like the 4th time, I can really see a lot of influences that this has had over other anime series, especially with fights or special moves that I see with current anime. Like, I've seen some abilities from this series of Bleach in here, where certain people had, and a couple other series as well, and this is pretty much a gold mine from what I see as far as making such an amazing shonen title. If they were to just revisit this and make a small series of OVAs, I think that they could really turn out well. So if you've seen Shadow Skill, the anime, the OVA, the movies, or read the manga, then let me know your thoughts about it in the comment section below. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you later.